This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And make sure to order Jamie Glazov's new critically acclaimed jihadist psychopath. How he is charming, seducing, and devouring us. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Biden asks a black reporter if he's a junkie. With us this evening, Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the editor and writer of the blog The Point at Front Page Magazine. Daniel, welcome back to the Glazov Gang.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Fantastic to have you here, Daniel. Well, you've written a blog on this recently about Biden's recent comments, if that's one word we can use to describe them. So first, he's making comments about how black people aren't really black if they don't vote for him. Now he's got a black reporter, a CBS correspondent, Errol Barnett, asking him a question, and he fires back asking him if he's a junkie. Daniel, tell us a little bit about this, and I'd also like to know, can you imagine if Trump did this? I mean, just imagine if Trump asked a black reporter if he was a junkie. It's incredible the silence in the establishment media over this. But go ahead.
Well, the myths and legends coming out of old Ireland say that the fairies blessed Joe Biden and he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. And throughout his career, he's made it very clear that the silver foot has only been going deeper and deeper down his throat at this point. He's all foot in the mouth. So the media, of course, does everything possible to protect Joe Biden from the consequences of the silver foot in his mouth. So CNN's headline on Biden explaining his comments is Biden clarifies his remarks rather than Biden says horribly racist thing and defends himself. But of course, the media is doing everything possible to get Joe Biden into the White House, even if they have to carry him there after he's been dead for 3 weeks. So, of course, the media is carrying water for him. Yet at the same time, the media goes into super offense mode over the pettiest things, like Trader Jose, the line of Trader Joe's items that are labeled Trader Jose because they come from Mexico are deemed to be extremely offensive. Yet Joe Biden responding to question about whether he's going to take a cognitive test by asking a black reporter if he should take a drug test because he might be on cocaine. Of course, it's just this kind of thing that, Joe Biden just says stuff. And this is the kind, it's funny on the one hand. Everything Joe Biden does is funny, largely unintentionally. This is the guy who is a gift to comedy. Just nobody's allowed to make the jokes. Always they're not going to be allowed to make the jokes until he finally, if he's elected, actually leaves office. So on the one hand, it's funny, it's ridiculous. On the other hand, this is the fundamental double standard on which we live. The double standard is that some people get fired for ridiculous things. There was a repairman working with, I believe, a cable company who was falsely accused of making a white power sign. He turned out to be Latino. He was still fired because somebody was running their little phone and recording him. People actually have had their lives destroyed. They've lost jobs, they've lost homes, they've lost livelihoods for things that are basically at best misunderstandings and the worst entrapment. And yet Joe Biden, top Democrats, are allowed to say and do absolutely anything, no matter how horrible. And Joe Biden, even before he was out to lunch, and let's face it, folks, he has a long history of saying horrible and horribly offensive things. This is the guy who said that Obama was the first clean-cut, well-spoken black politician. As a reward for that, Obama made him his vice president. So, the value system there is interesting. He's had a long string of saying racially offensive things about black people, about Indians, about other people. If you want somebody who says politically incorrect things, Joe Biden is that guy, and they're running him for president. Now, the problem is he's got the earpiece, he's got a whole bunch of notes in front of him, but still somebody asks him something and he reacts the way he reacted all those long decades ago when he was first running for the Senate, when he responded to a questioner who actually asked him about his plagiarism by challenging him to an IQ contest. And that's not a contest Joe Biden's going to win.
Thank you, Daniel. Just my laughter is also connected to, let's just say I could start crying at any minute because all of this is so tragic, but just so absurd. Again, I'm just trying to picture Trump at a press conference asking a black reporter if they're on cocaine and if they're a junkie. I mean, this would be front page news on every single media outlet. But, you know, Biden's not stopping here. Now he's talking about, he just made this comment how unlike the black community, the Latino community is incredibly diverse. So he's implying that the black community is not diverse.
Now, let's actually just give it a little bit of context. Not all that long ago, Biden in another interview said that black people who vote Republican or aren't going to vote for him aren't really black. So the black community is not allowed to be diverse. The black community has to be monolithically Democrat, but the Latino community is allowed to be somewhat politically diverse. The black community has to stay in the Democrat plantation, though. To quote Joe Biden back in the day, he's going to put you all back in chains.
Right. Very, very bizarre. Look, I can't help from bringing this up because I think it's connected. Daniel, I've rewatched that video clip with him. It's mostly black children in that video clip standing around him. And he's boasting to them how, you know, years back at some kind of pool, the kids used to rub his legs and they would rub the hair down and then the hairs would come up again. Please help me understand if I've missed something. What was that all about?
That was the epic tale of Corn Pop. The epic tale of Corn Pop has since become part of the Joe Biden legend. There were theories that actually Joe Biden might choose Corn Pop as his vice president. This, of course, was Corn Pop was the gang member. They were supposedly bringing a chain to fight at the swimming pool. Corn Pop, of course, being a black gang member, apparently. Now, supposedly this legend is actually true. There actually supposedly was a gang member named Corn Pop, hard as it is to believe. But, you know, it's hard to know what to believe and what Joe Biden's crazy malfunctioning brain at this point is just making up. Because, you know, Joe Biden is a living word salad. Words just randomly emerge from his mouth, and sometimes they're connected to things. Other times it's just like a car malfunctioning.
No, but Daniel, can you just give the best attempt to defend and explain that particular boasting about the hair on the legs and people rubbing his legs? What's the nicest interpretation of that, of what he was trying to say?
I mean, I don't know. I think like everybody else that was completely baffled by his story about his leg hairs and Corn Pop, and he was trying to relate to black people. I mean, I don't understand it. Maybe you have to have been there at the time, or maybe you have to be Joe Biden to understand it. I mean, Joe Biden, there are just clips on social media constantly of Biden saying things, and you don't understand what he's trying to say, what he's on about, or what's wrong with him. It's some people repeatedly have called it elder abuse. There's just something wrong there. There's something malfunctioning.
Yeah, no, just that clip is fascinating. So look, I wanted to bring up here, I'm not really sure where Biden stands on defunding the police. There seems to be a little bit of a walking back, but I'm not really sure because he's saying different things every day. But it's very clear that the radical left controls him. But this issue is about Biden and black people this evening and all these just crazy, rude, racist things that he's saying. But you just discussed a recent poll in your blog at The Point. And you point out that this poll reveals that 81% of black people want more or the same amount of police. 61% of black people want the police to spend the same amount of time in the area, while 20% want more of a police presence. So Black Lives Matter is for defunding the police, but the majority of black people want the same amount of police, if not more. Is the Democratic Party, what do you make of this, Daniel? In other words, Biden and the Democratic Party overall, by being behind this Marxist movement of defunding the police, are going against what black people actually want.
Black Lives Matter is a huge scam. It has almost no footprint in the black community. It did not emerge out of the black community. Its agendas, I mean, it advocates for things like breaking up the two-parent family. This has no roots in the Black community. The Black community is much more socially conservative, really, than the rest of the Democrat Party. Current statistics show actually the majority of white Democrats are non-Christian. That's certainly not the case in the Black community. So the Black community is not on board with a lot of the stuff. They certainly don't want to get rid of the police because they're the ones who are actually suffering the most. They're the ones who are actually the victims of much of the murders and much of the gang violence. You go to someplace like Chicago or Baltimore, who's getting shot there? It's mainly Black people. It's not really so much the white people are being shot. It's not the Asians being shot. So they need the police to be there. The idea of defunding the police has really almost no support in the Black community, except again among a whole bunch of radicals funded by, the famous African-American organization, the Ford Foundation, and the famous African-American philanthropist George Soros, and a bunch of other rich guys, most of whom are not Black.
Thank you, Daniel. So, Daniel, look, when we sit back and reflect on what Marxism is, who the Marxists are, what the left is, all of this actually makes sense. The left wants minorities to bleed. They want Black people to bleed and to suffer. They want people to bleed and to suffer because the more suffering there is, the more racial division, the more poverty, the more hatred, the more feelings of being a victim of many people. That's where the Marxist revolution's fire burns the most, right? So the people that the left speaks on behalf of course it wants to hurt them. And it only makes sense that Black Lives Matter overall is clearly hurting Black people and clearly wants to hurt Black people further, right?
Absolutely. The left feeds off human misery. It's built on manufacturing crises and then exploiting those crises. So of course it advocates for defunding the police. And then when the violence goes up, it says, well, of course, the problem is guns. We need to ban the NRA. And when that doesn't work, they're going to turn to some other radical solution. The left springboards from one crisis to another, from one radical solution to another, because their purpose is to gain utter and absolute power. Now, the Black community is their plantation. The worse they can make things in the Black community, the better it is for them. So of course they want to increase crime, they want to increase misery, they want to increase poverty, they want to break up Black businesses. Black Lives Matter has been pretty open about this, that the solution is not middle classness, the solution is not actually aspiration and hard work. The solution is breaking America, because that's the goal. They are Marxists. The goal of Marxists is to shatter America's ability to function as a free society.
Absolutely. Now look, we know that this slander against Trump being racist is exactly that. It's a slander, it's a smear, it's a libel. It is the furthest thing from the truth. But it's very interesting what Biden adds to this libel, because recently he also said that Trump is the first racist president. Just very quickly, what did you think of that? Because historically that might not be altogether true.
Yes, Woodrow Wilson would actually be spinning in his grave for being denied the credit of being the first prominent Democrat racist president who screened Birth of a Nation in the White House. But this is just a case of historical revisionism, the Democrat Party inventing reality, inventing history as they go along with no regard for the facts or any kind of past. And, when you think about Joe Biden running for president against Trump using the race card, and there's going to be Kamala Harris, who actually called him a racist, standing next to him, it ought to be quite a picture.
Daniel, it's, I just don't know. I just don't know. I was watching this one clip. I think it was his wife leading him out of this building, and it literally looked like he was lost. I just don't know. It's some kind of weird, tragic comedy unfolding. But for all of the things that are going against Trump, because we know that the fix, they're trying to get the fix in, but the deep state, the media, there's so much against him. Those of us that are for freedom and liberty, and therefore for Trump, we've been given this divine present, I believe, of Joe Biden. So we'll see how that plays out. But let's finish on this. The establishment media, what hypocrites, by not saying a word about what he's, this whole junkie thing and all that stuff, right? But they are definitely hiding him in the basement. And And I think they're really going to try to stop him from debating Trump, because if he debates Trump, I've got to get 20 packages of popcorn. What do you, let's finish on this. What's the strategy here of the left to keep him in the basement, maybe put a muzzle on him, hide him somewhere? What's going on near the end here in terms of that and the debates, etc.?
The Trump campaign asked for a fourth debate. The Biden team definitely doesn't want to do it. The media is launching its own push to even strike down debates entirely. I don't think the Biden team wants those debates, even if they have the debates on Zoom, even if they have a lot of prep. Bottom line is Biden was a disaster at the Democrat debates. All you could say about the debates is that he sort of survived. If you count just standing there, not even being able to finish a sentence or use up his time as survived. So they don't want to particularly see Biden debate Trump. I mean, they can get him maybe to memorize a few short sentences, but that's not really going to work very well. So I think they're going to look for an excuse to pull out of the debates and look as if they're taking the high ground. What I strongly suspect is they're going to respond to something that Trump says or tweets, and they'll say, this is so offensive, we can't even debate him, we can't even normalize Trump by debating him. I think that's the excuse that they're going to go with.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how it unfolds. What a story of the hypocrisy and the evil of the left that we see transpiring right in front of our eyes. And thank you, Daniel Greenfield, for constantly exposing that hypocrisy and evil of the left, okay?
Thank you as well, because your show, your writings bring light, a very important light to this issue.
Thanks so much, Daniel, and we hope to see you soon. And thank you for watching the Glazov Gang this evening. Make sure you are reading Daniel Greenfield's blog, The Point, at frontpagemag.com, and we'll see you soon on the Glazov Gang. Good night.